Okay, let's just get the elephant out of the room. I didn't intend to make this video. I didn't even want to watch the second season of the TV show. I mean, for God's sake, I made a Rambler video where when the trailer came out saying, oh, I'm not gonna watch this show. Well, that aged very poorly. You see, I had a chat with my pal, Installation00, about the show, and he said some rather encouraging things to me. By the end of that conversation, I said, you know what? Fuck it, fine, I'll try it. I will give the second season of the Halo TV show a chance. But the more I thought about it, the more I decided that there was no way I would ever go into this show alone, and there was no way I would watch that show without a hefty amount of, well, I can't really go too in depth on YouTube, so spicy water, let's call it. So I call up my god bro, Cal. I tell it to him straight, I can't do this alone. I need a watch buddy. Cal and I do this thing now and again where we'll go into something knowing full well it'll be painful together. Why? Because we can make anything fun, no matter how bad. It doesn't matter if the media in question is God's miracle gift to the 21st century or a horrific abomination of a film that completely sends an entire franchise into the dumpster for years to come. We will either have fun with it or make fun of it. As a side note, I really wish we'd recorded our time watching Blood and Honey. That was hilarious. But anywho, we decided to watch the Halo show and make a game of it. Every time the Chief takes his helmet off, we take a sip. If his helmet is off for more than 7 minutes, an extra spicier sip of spicy water. And for an explicit type of scene I can't talk about on this platform, we'll just chug whatever we can. Now, a quick note, we were responsible here. We had people on hand that could take away the extra spicy water should things get out of hand, and we were at home where people who were free from the influence can keep an eye on us. If you ever intend to consume a cup of totally water, please make sure you have someone on hand that you trust who can take care of you. Seriously, please be responsible. Do not be reckless, all right? That said, here are some clips of us having fun. I apologize, I was recording on my phone and the camera was facing the wrong way the entire time. At one point, the dog came over and started sniffing the phone, so you're only gonna get audio, and it won't be good audio, but here, enjoy. What the fuck? Why is it actually good?
Want to watch this now?
like, if this is season 2, I'm here for it. I'm not pissed off. I'm actually happy. What the fuck? But like, we got a Halo ring and the actual Halo theme. Yes. 10 out of 10!
10 out of 10. You know what?
10 out of 10! Best season! Best season!
For sure.
Now this is the potential to be down for.
God.
No, just me?
I mean, yeah, but I have to drink this boy shit. I'm over.
That's so fucking cool! That's such a good shot of the Covenant fleet! Yeah!
The episode.
That is the best shot in the episode, easily. Easily.
Cake.
Oh my god. Okay, so with that in mind, what do I think of the first 2 episodes of season 2? Well, there are things I liked, things I thought were okay, and some things that caused me to consume more of the spicy water than my companion did. Oh boy, I was lost. Let's start with the Master Chief. Firstly, I have no issue with the actor of the Chief, Pablo Schreiber, although I do disagree strongly with some of his takes. I recognize that, you know what, he's a good guy with a good heart, and he's very passionate about his work. Regardless of whether the script is good or bad, he performs well. The same can be said for the various actors in the show. They're passionate, and I appreciate that. If anyone from the cast and crew happens to see this video, just know that my critiques of the show are not critiques of them as people or their work. Now, as for the Master Chief in the show, season 1 was I have to be blunt. One of the biggest pieces of character assassination I have seen since Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Actually, it was worse than The Last Jedi. I know people like to focus on the helmet, and yes, I did make a game of it, but truth be told, the helmet's not the issue here. The Chief takes his helmet off in the books all the time, so for someone like me who regularly reads the book, the helmet thing is not really an issue. The helmet is more of an on-screen, in-game choice rather than something completely vital to the character. No, my real issue with Season 1's portrayal of the Chief was that it was completely off-character. Now, I know the reason behind why the Chief was nothing short of an emotionally unstable wreck, with the whole chip blah 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 thing, but they took it too far. He was bluntly put a man-child with anger issues in Season 1 that quite literally fucked a Covenant spy, and we'll get to that spy later. I have words. Now, the reason this was a bad portrayal is because John the Master Chief has always been portrayed as someone that's calm, collected, solid. He's quick on his feet, but he can also be very sentimental at times. He cares about the Marines he fights beside, and the Spartans are his family. Let's take a look at the opening levels of Halo Combat Evolved. As the Chief is leaving the Pillar of Autumn with Cortana in his suit, a Marine stumbles, falls, and they freeze up. The Chief stops, grabs the Marine, and throws him into the life pod. What do the Marines in the pod then do as the Chief boards the pod? They look to him for reassurance. "We're gonna make it, aren't we, sir? I don't want to die here." The Chief places a reassuring hand on the Marine's shoulder, gives him a nod, and then goes to see what the situation with the pilot is. The Chief is not a cold, unfeeling person, even if he does genuinely struggle at times. Ultimately, he's a man that had his childhood stolen from him, so yes, he will be a man of few words. He's going to be socially awkward in some manners. But he's a person that cares. "No time for digging," Van Hoot said over the comm. "Just let me know when you're clear of the SDD blast radius." "No, we'll find another way." John rolled to his knees and peered over Chapov's shoulder. "There's going to be a head's width of cavity between the owl's nose and a wall of sandstone bedrock, and the canopy was pressed tight against a meter-thick ceiling of lecitellurite." "Blue 4, sit rep." "I'm still climbing the ridge," Linda said, "but I see no inbound seraphs yet." "Let us know if that changes." Linda's status light winked green. Then Van Hoot was on the comm again. "Don't you dare risk the mission to extract me," he said. "It's my mistake that put me here, and I'm happy to—" "What mistake?" John asked. He sat on his haunches, then looked back at Kelly and shook his helmet. Chapov was right. There was no time to dig a cavity large enough to extract the Major. "We're on the ground, alive and with our equipment intact." "I decelerated too hard," Van Hoot said. "That caused an equipment failure, endangering the craft and the mission." "You did what you had to do." As John spoke, Chapov dropped his chin, no doubt thinking of the deceleration tolerances Van Hoot had exceeded. Ignoring him, John added, "And I don't see any seraph strafing us." "Yet," Van Hoot said. "Move out. That's an order, Master Chief." "Sorry, Major," John said. "You got us to the ground, so it's my mission now." Or how about this segment from The Flood? The Master Chief took a moment to reload the launcher, then slogged back up to the beach. A distant howl of anguish issued from the other alien's throat. "Serves you right," he thought. "You only lost one brother. I lost all of mine." He felt a pang of sorrow for the two dead Marines. He should have anticipated the long-range attack, should have briefed the Leathernecks about the possibility of hunters, should have reacted more quickly. All of which meant that it was his fault that the Marines were dead. "That wasn't your fault," Cortana said gently. "Now be careful. There's another hunter up on the platform." The words were like a bucket of cold water in the face. Mental combat. That's how his teacher, Chief Mendez, had referred to it. Always stressing the importance of a cool head. Slowly, methodically, the Master Chief worked his way up the slope, killing Covenant soldiers with machine precision. The small groups of grunts were irrelevant. The real challenge waited above. So with those passages in mind, John 117 is many things. A leader, a Spartan, a man of action. He will do what he has to do. But he is also someone that cares and wants to do the right thing. And he recognizes that sometimes the right thing to do is the wrong thing as well. And yet the wrong thing is a compromise of morals he will only resort to as a last resort. Honestly, I can make a whole video essay on who is the Master Chief, who is John 117, but that's a video for another time. The point is, there's a reason I call Canon Chief John and Silver Chief Jimmy. How does Season 2 handle the Chief? Well, I'm gonna be outright with it. League's better than season 1. Perfect? No, not at all. Not at all. But it's actually kind of for the better. What do I mean by that? Well, season 2 is supposed to be a soft reboot, a pivot from season 1. So it is essentially wrapping up the plot of season 1 and pushing us into something else. Think of season 2 as a transitional period. As such, we are starting to see more of John and less of Jimmy, but there is still plenty of Jimmy that remains. What do I mean by this? Well, in episode 1, Sanctuary, there's a scene where the chief is looking for a missing squad of Marines. They are a communication squad, armed and trained, but not exactly hell jumpers. Immediately, the Marines open fire and wildly miss in a panic, and the chief calls out that he's friendly. The Marines apologize and explain, hey, we're a comms team, we're scared. And the chief's first response is, I know, I could tell by your ring. That's the kind of dry humor that we do see out of the chief in canon. What if you miss? I won't. Does he usually mention me? I'm going to warm things up. That's a John response. That's John humor. Then when the Marines start getting picked off in the fog, there's really only one of them left. What does the chief do? He kneels down to help the Marine and presses his back to hers while keeping a firm hand on her. He's actively keeping a hold of her, putting himself in a compromised position because he wants to know where he is so he can protect her. The Marine is panicked and afraid, so the chief proceeds to calm her down. What's your name, Corporal? And from there, he talks her down and helps to ground her in reality. He also remembers her name and uses that name instead of her rank. Perez. When the Covenant starts to glass the area, he immediately kneels down to shield her, using his armor to protect Perez from the initial blast before carrying her to safety. When I saw that scene, I was thinking, that is the Master Chief. That is John 117. As a matter of fact, the clips you heard from the opening minutes of, well, the clips you heard, they were from around the opening minutes of episode 1, around the time of that scene. And honestly, so far, I like Perez. I think she's an interesting character I want to see more of. It's nice getting to see the Human Covenant War from a non-Spartan perspective. But I will say there are some plot points regarding her, not specifically to do with the character, but, okay, how do I put this? So basically, Oni, for some reason, doesn't believe the chief when he says, I saw the Covenant on a planet that's about to be glassed, because they're thinking, why would the Covenant show up to a planet that's about to be glassed? And the problem I have with that plot point is, firstly, there's so many ways they could validate the chief story. For one, he has Singhili blood splattered on his visor and on his knife, which they could clearly see, and even if somehow the blood got washed away, there would still be residue. Residue where they could say, oh, hey, that's not human blood. So there's that. The other thing is, you mean to tell me that they wouldn't have access to, like, a footage from the Mjolnir armor? You mean to tell me that you have all these systems built in to the Mjolnir armor and somehow you don't have a fucking camera? What? That makes no sense? So, things like that. But otherwise, I'm liking Perez. Now, that said, there is one specific scene that I've seen a lot of controversy over so far, and I understand why. So basically, the chief goes to, I can't say what it is. He goes to a fun house with bro at the beginning and THEL at the end. But he's not there for a good time, he's basically there to talk. He goes to customize an AI that looks like Cortana to talk to her. A lot of people came out of this interpreting it as, Chief's being weird and he misses Cortana. I saw it more along the lines of the Cloud scene in Cyberpunk 2077 where V essentially gets what amounts to a therapy session in a bro THEL. He was there because the business is discreet. Customers are kept anonymous and it helps him process stuff. That's definitely a Jimmy thing to do, not a John thing to do, but it definitely isn't that scene from season 1. We all know the one I'm referring to. Oh, good lord. And then one more thing that I disliked regarding the characterization of not just the chief but Spartans. So we finally get a glimpse at another team of Spartan 2s, Cobalt team or whatever, Team Cobalt, I don't know. And they were not acting like Spartan 2s. Spartan 2s are like family. Even though, yes, you have some Spartan 2s that are closer to each other than others, the Spartan 2s are still a big family. As an example, Red Team, in 2558, they have been asleep in cryo for 28 years, and they finally wake up on the Ark, and what do you think is the first thing that they say when they hear about John? I'm glad to know John's still out there. They are relieved to know that there are still some of their companions out there, because as far as they knew, they were the only Spartan 2s left. So things like that. But Cobalt Squad is just acting totally childish, and they're berating Silver Team with these completely childish insults that are so unlike a Spartan 2. In fact, I said out loud at one point, this is worse than Fireteam Majestic. This one scene somehow topped Fireteam Majestic as a bad portrayal of Spartans. And bear in mind, Fireteam Majestic, the damage from that portrayal of Spartan 4s continues to tarnish the reputation of Spartan 4s in the Halo community to this day. And at the very least, Majestic had Thorn, who was, in my opinion, a good character. I kind of bummed we didn't get more of him. But the rest of Majestic, Spartan Ops literally opens up with with Majestic basically acting like a bunch of surfer bros. And somehow this was worse because Cobalt Squad was acting like a bunch of kindergartners on a playground. It was so stupid. But, like I said, more of John, a little less of Jimmy, but we're only at the start, so, you know, we'll see. Okay, here's where things get especially messy. There's the good, the bad, and the what the actual fuck. First things first, we're finally getting something that makes sense for the Covenant. Kind of. We'll get to that. The Coveys are just straight up going on a glassing spree like we saw in the canon Human Covenant War. Okay, cool. But there's still a major hiccup. Makee. Why? Why must we bring this character back? We had every opportunity to leave her behind when season 1 killed her off. Why the fuck is she alive? And they give no reason. They give no reason. This is worse than somehow Palpatine returned. I hate it. I hate it when shows and manga and anime and whatever do things like this, where they just bring back dead characters for the sake of bringing back dead characters. If they had made Makee's death ambiguous, or given us a reasonable mechanism for her coming back to life, okay, alright, I'll begrudgingly accept it, even though I hate the character. If there is a well-written setup for a character's return, it makes sense. Severe spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen, but I'm using an example here of revival making sense. Skip to the time in the top right corner if you want to avoid it. Jujutsu Kaisen recently killed off Satoru Gojo in his fight with Sukuna, paving the way for the main characters, Yuta and Yuji, to take the W, but there are lots of signs for Gojo coming back from the dead. Firstly, JJK has established a multitude of means showing characters can come back from what should be death. Firstly, the reverse curse technique. Someone so sufficiently skilled like Gojo with RCT would need to have their head cut off to permanently kill them. Gojo says so himself to Toji in Hidden Inventory. Secondly, Gojo has been brought to Shoko, the pinnacle of the reverse curse technique right now. Thirdly, an afterlife exists in JJK. This has been established. Fourthly, necromancy is possible. We see Toji's soul come back, albeit only temporarily and haphazardly in the Shibuya incident. So if Satoru Gojo returns, though I personally don't think he will, there is a ton of precedent for it. Makee, on the other hand, just comes back. Somehow, Makee returned. We literally see Kai kill her in season 1. Why the hell is she back? Now, what about other characters? How about Soren? Well, in season 1, I actually liked Soren. He's a character whose potential was wasted in the canon. You know, who I didn't like in season 1? Oni. Oni was so ridiculously incompetent in the first season for so many reasons. I can make a whole video on that. But as far as I'm concerned, season 2, so far, is starting to redeem Oni. Starting. Firstly, Soren is looking for Halsey, who is now on the run after Season 1. A young man shows up on the rubble, having survived a great deal, and is quite the innocent chap. He claims to have information on Halsey, and tells a convincing story. Soren, his crew, and this kid finds the wreckage of a freighter that was probably hit by the Covenant, and then they board the freighter to find the cryopod Halsey is supposedly in. Only for, BAM! The kid is an Oni agent. Oni has set up an ambush for Soren, and they paid off his crew. To top that off, Oni has infiltrated the upper echelons of the rebel to ensure that Soren would be isolated. And better yet, Oni has had Halsey this entire time and is using Cortana's databanks to mess with her, and the Halsey bounty was just bait to get Soren out of hiding. That is some Office of Naval Intelligence shit. That is Oni. More of that. That, please. But at the same time, there's a problem. First of all, the Fall of Reach setup makes no sense. McKee knows where Reach is. The Covenant knows where Reach is. They know where the crown jewel of the UNSC military-industrial complex is, second only to Earth itself. The home of the Spartans, one of the largest economic hubs in the human sphere. For God's sake, in canon, Reach's slipspace hub kept up a back and forth with the solar system for the title of most transited slipspace route that year. That's how major Reach is. And the Covenant just does nothing with that? They don't invade immediately? They just leave Reach alone for months? Like, we know we can take out our enemy's largest and most prized military stronghold. We know our enemy's chain of command is centered there. We also know they have some valuable Forerunner relics too that we spent the entire first season fighting over. But nah, let's go glass this random ass backwater that has no strategic significance instead. What the fuck? Wouldn't Reach, even, yes, the Covenant doesn't like to make strategic decisions, but wouldn't, the cluster of 700 million humans be more valuable of a religious purging target than some backwater with one town? Also, McKee just walks on screen. You hear her voice and she just walks on screen. So they don't even introduce her in a manner that makes sense. She just walks on screen. She walks into Swordbase with what I'm presuming is this show's arbiter, and Swordbase is just under attack without the wider UNSC knowing. Oni clearly knows based on Ackerson's stuff, but they haven't declared winter contingency? What? First of all, how? Second of all, how? Third of all, how the fuck? Did they pull a Halo Reach and make use of some hyper-advanced stealth tech to mask their super carrier? If so, why is the UNSC just eating rocks the moment the Coveys revealed themselves? Like, clearly shit's going down at Swordbase. Clearly shit's going down at Visegrad. You don't immediately declare winter contingency. You don't immediately, do something the moment the Coveys, the Coveys on the ground. In Halo Reach, at least it made sense. The UNSC response. Even if the Covenant presence on Reach in the game was a little dubious, quite frankly, for a lot of reasons I can make a whole video about, the UNSC response, militarily speaking, makes sense. This is just stupid. And to give you an idea of how stupid the UNSC response here is, there's this scene where there's a dark hallway, 2 squads of Marines are in it, and the officer is like, "First squad, go!" So one squad of Marines goes into the dark tunnel knowing, hey, someone's there, we heard some heavy footsteps, probably a Sangheili, and we know the Coveys have active camo, and a sufficiently skilled elite can tear through a squad of Marines, but hey, let's just mosey on into the dark hallway. So then that squad starts screaming and opening fire in the distance, and then they're dead and things are silent. So the officer's like, "First squad, sit rep!" Motherfucker, they're dead! So then he says, "Second squad, go!" Like his best Pokemon got wiped out by the Elite Four, so he's sending in the spare knowing they're about to get killed. But unlike the Pokemon trainer, he doesn't have a revive available. And so the second squad just gets wiped out. And this one dude is just standing there doing nothing, and then he gets killed. You want to know what you do when you're dealing with active camo elites, or just the elites in general inside of a building? Halo Outcasts tells you what to do. You set up your squads in a spread-out defensive posture with overlapping fields of fire, using the narrow corridors to your advantage. The enemy can only come from a few directions, and in this case, only one direction. And while your initial troopers are gonna get hit by the energy sword, everyone else will immediately know where the elite is and open fire, overwhelming the shields in disciplined volleys before finishing them off. You don't just go, "First squad, I choose you," and see what the fuck happens. Sorry, I just felt I had to comment on that. Simultaneously, there are points where they have a solid portrayal of the UNSC. In episode 1, there is a group of Marines trying to evacuate some civilians from a planet that's about to be glassed. The thing that people tend to not realize about the human sphere is that, while it is small compared to the Covenant sphere, it's still huge, with tons of cultures, religions, and even hybrid languages. The UNSC Marines in this situation are very much like coalition troops in Iraq. They don't understand the culture or the people there. They are taught to act forcibly and with authority. The crowd of civilians that aren't cooperating, they're refusing to leave for religious, moral, and cultural reasons. And they've already had to relocate once because of the UNSC in the past. They do know about the Covenant, but religious, moral, and cultural reasons, once again, implore them to remain on their planet. Their home planet is, in their belief, a child that needs to be cared for. To abandon it is to abandon a child about to be murdered. They've already been forced to do that once, and they're refusing to do it again. The UNSC Marines are, as far as they're concerned, just doing their job. They're just trying to get these people out of here. This planet is about to get glassed, and they are trying to save these people's lives, but they refuse to cooperate for some dumb reason as far as they're concerned. Now, as the United States learned the hard way in Iraq and Afghanistan, you can't smash a population with a hammer. You need to understand the culture, the people. You need to learn how to speak to them with that in mind. Political culture is a thing, and it is a very important thing to study. While yes, the war on terror was largely a failure, those lessons continue to save lives to this day. The UNSC Marines, however, aren't versed in this world's culture. They're taught to be Marines that act on the authority of Earth. They are there to do a job. They're a skeleton crew on a backwater of uncooperative civilians that's about to get glassed. They're tense, on edge, and have itchy trigger fingers. So eventually, when the Marines go to do what they're taught, arrest the ringleader of the disobedient crowd, the mob starts to shove and surround them because they're agitated. So think about it like this. Small group of soldiers, surrounded by an angry mob of people they don't understand the rationality of. And they're being shoved, they're being harassed, they're being shouted at. A detail I appreciated was that the Marines were panicking, and one of them raised their weapon to open fire. You see them raise their weapon, and they are clearly about to open fire and turn this into a bloodbath. And it was only the intervention of Silver Team that got both parties involved to behave. That's quite honestly a very realistic interaction we can see throughout history, including recently. And I can point to a myriad of cases where this type of situation has happened. And this has happened in Halo canon as well. So props to that. So in conclusion, Season 2 has had a strong start considering what it had going for it coming out of Season 1. It's not perfect. There are glaring issues. And honestly, there are a lot of things I'm still confused about. Seriously, there's so many gaps and plot holes that need to be filled, but compared to Season 1, this is an improvement. You know, if before we were in the Marianas Trench, we're at least at sea level now, we're still in a raft, we're now in a raft that's full of holes and slowly sinking again, but we're out of the trench, at least. I'd like to be on land, but hey, we're out of the Mariana Trench? I guess? That really just sounds like a whole lot of copium, to be honest with you. Alright, what do you guys think? I'll see you in the cosmos, friends.